OC Financial Media presents, in association with CHL Mortgage, as heard on KTLK AM1150, from LA to Orange County.
Your host, Dino Katsiametis.
It's about your real estate. It's about your money. From your estate to real estate, it's Money Matters with Dino.
Welcome back to Money Matters with Dino on K-Talk AM1150. If you have any questions at all about anything you hear here today, give me a call. I'm at 949-720-1616. That's 949-720-1616. Or check us out online at moneymatterswithdino.com. From your estate to real estate, we're here to help. This segment is brought to you by Reverse Mortgage Educators. These guys have been on the show a few times, and they absolutely made me a believer. If you're over 62 years of age and having trouble living on a fixed income, look into reverse mortgages. Give them a call, or give me a call, and I'll put you in touch with them. It really is a great program, and they've made me a believer, but it's not for everybody. So let's get you educated and figure out if it's right for you. Call me at 949-720-1616. All right, guys, we are having a discussion here today, mediation and estate planning for a happier divorce. And before we start, I actually got to say I'm a little nervous, and I don't want to say it's because of you guys. It's because last night my wife said, "What's the show about?" I told her, and she doesn't normally come to the shows, and she showed up. And I don't know what the heck this is about. So Barry, just in case, remember, me and you, okay? Don't talk to her. All right, so Barry Fischer, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about what you do in your practice.
I'm a family law divorce attorney. I'm a California family law specialist. I've been doing it for 27 years, and I take care of everything from high complex, high asset divorces, custody battles, visitation, restraining orders, illegal, kidnapping cases where they kidnap a child from one country and they bring him to the United States, and one spouse is coming here to say, "I want my child back."
So that's not just in the movies. That really happens.
Oh, it happens every day.
Wow. Well, thank you for coming on the show here. We are looking forward to having you answer a bunch of these questions and really being the expert here today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Ellie Ortiz.
Yes. Hi, Dino.
Tell us about the name of your firm and what you do, and what's made you so successful over the years.
Well, the name of my firm is Laguna Beach Legal Document and Mediation Services, and basically the name says it all. So what I do is I prepare legal documents for attorneys and also for the public, and I also do divorce mediation. So I always tell people, try divorce mediation as a first resort if you're able to communicate to keep the family together. And if it doesn't work, then of course, then Barry is the place to go for the litigation and for the he'll be on your side and he'll fight for you. As a mediator, I have to stay neutral. So I can't take sides, and I really have to think about the kid's best interest rather than the sides.
How does mediation work? Do you have to have a special license for that?
Yes, you do have to have a special license, and then also the equivalent to that is years of training. So I have mediated over 2,000 cases throughout my career.
Wow, that's
so I think that prepares you a lot more for mediation than the actual courses.
Okay. Well, let's just jump right into the questions, okay?
Okay. So
for the most part, I think all of us know somebody that's been divorced. In fact, my partner Mike, I think he's been divorced 4 or 5 times now. 7. and then we got our producer Phil, who is just terrified of the whole subject. And I think the stats are 50% or so, but yet and then they go up if you've been divorced before. So in Orange County, I believe I read somewhere that it was even higher than 50%. What in the heck is going on out there, and why is it so high?
Well, it's not really a legal question. It's a cultural question about our society. And what's really happening in our society is breakdown of the old traditional family unit of mom, dad, and kids all staying together and living together. The majority of households now are single-parent households, not husband and wife households. And because life has changed, and since women's rights in the 60s and women having independent careers and everybody having their own ability to make money and support themselves and wanting their independence, and then there is a great feeling in our society of abundance. There's a lot of people you can choose from. So there's a lot of changing. You know, you like one person, oh, I don't have to stay here. I don't have to be committed. Oh, there's another person here. I'll go with that person. So I think that's what causes it.
Barry, do you find that different cultures, even in today's day and age, stay together more often, even if they're unhappy?
Yes, I do find certain cultures have a lower divorce rate. It really depends upon the structure of the family unit and how strong that is.
Ellie, you do mediation. What's the success ratio of that? Or honestly, do people just at some point just say the heck with it and they end up getting the attorney and going at each other's throats?
Well, in our office, we have a really high success rate, and now the success rate starts from when the parties agree to mediate. So that doesn't always happen. There are a lot of people that come in for to get information on mediation and divorce, and it scares them, and they don't want to go through the mediation, so they do go with attorneys. But once they've committed to mediation as an alternative, then we have a 99% success rate.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I know when you have an attorney, right? Each party has an attorney, and the numbers come out, and this is what everybody wants. Everybody seems to want to argue that number. It's rarely ever accepted the first time. With mediation, do they just say, "Oh, she's got nobody's interest at heart, so whatever she says must be," or do they start negotiating as well?
No, of course they negotiate.
They negotiate.
Yeah, they negotiate, and I help them as much as I can, and then I send them out to experts if they need experts, such as appraisals for property or financial planners, whatever
Sure.
that is that I can't help them with.
What about prenups? I know they're created to make things easier, and let's start with the mediation aspect of it. When somebody comes in and they have a prenup, does that help the mediation process?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It sure does, because it eliminates a lot of questions.
And Barry, let me ask you as an attorney, when somebody has a prenup and comes in, and let's say the wife, isn't going to get as much because of it, and she comes to you, do you look at that and say, absolutely not, I'm going to tear this thing apart? And
yes, I do.
Yes, you do.
Prenups are like, there's a purpose for a prenup. The purpose of a prenup is to protect your assets and your future income from being shared with a person that you don't trust that you're about to marry. So it's, contraindicated. You love this person, you want to share your life with them, you're planning to be with them forever. You're certainly telling them that, I'm going to marry you and be together forever, but sign here so you don't get anything from me. So it's kind of like a problem, the prenup, because in relationships it's a problem. Oftentimes prenups come about in an incorrect manner. And when they come around in an incorrect manner, like the night before the wedding, the husband says, look, I'm going to marry you tomorrow, but just sign here. Well, that prenup is not going to be valid.
Right.
So there's got to be some conditions met to make it a valid document. And then even if you meet all the conditions, you can still challenge it. You can still chip away at it and make certain things occur in the court that you were trying to prevent by the prenup that a judge will allow you to do.
So would you say that a divorce situation that has a prenup is going to end up costing everybody a heck of a lot more money?
If you're going to fight the prenup, that's a case in itself.
Okay.
Then you still have to identify, characterize the assets, separate property, community property, value the assets, divide the assets. And then you have to argue about what's the true income. Well, the perks that the person gets in the business should be tacked on to the income. What is the spousal support? What is the child support? And then, of course, we have to argue about which side is going to pay for the attorney's fees for the other side.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on in a divorce case.
Correct me if I'm wrong. A prenup, is only valid for the spousal support, not for child support.
It's not only for spousal support. It's for anything having to do with property. You can prevent division of property. You could prevent property being transferred. You cannot contract to limit child support in any way, under any circumstance. So, like, we get these cases where someone comes in and says, I don't want to pay child support anymore. So I'll give her $100,000 and I'm not going to pay child support. Well, it doesn't work. It's a void against public policy. You can't contract away your obligation for child support.
What if the other spouse agrees to the $100,000?
Doesn't matter.
So even if he or she agrees to it, the courts will not allow it.
Well, it's not enforceable. It's a provision that's against the policy and the laws of the state of California. And either spouse, either parent can go in the next day and request child support and get a new child support order. Even with that agreement in place, it has no effect.
Wow. So let's talk about the prenup for just a little bit longer. What are the absolute necessary items that need to be in a prenup in order to make it legal?
Consent by both parties, full disclosure of assets, liabilities, and income exchange prior to, a very clearly defined agreement. It has to be clear. It can't be ambiguous. And it has to be presented to the other side an adequate enough time before the date of the wedding to make it legal, because you can't present it a week before and expect the other spouse. For instance, let me give you an example. How long does it take to plan a wedding? 90 days? 100 days? So the person's planning the wedding, booked the catering hall, sent the invitations, and now when all that's done and all the relatives are going to show up, they start negotiating a prenup? Well, it's unfair. There's duress there. There's coercion there. It has to be free of those things. It has to be a voluntary agreement.
Okay. Great information. Thank you. What about mediation versus divorce? What kind of costs are involved in mediation? And then, Barry, what kind of costs are involved in divorce?
I charge flat fees for mediation, and so I charge $5,000 to mediate a case. And
do you put a time limit on that and say, yes, you're going to get X amount of hours from me?
Yes, okay. I do, because otherwise it gets ridiculous.
Absolutely.
And then I always tell them, that's a drop in the bucket if you do need to hire an attorney. So Barry can tell you the rest.
Well, divorce can be very inexpensive. For instance, if two people act like adults and they remove the emotional problems, because when someone starts a separation, they're suffering from rejection, betrayal, disappointment, anger, fear. They have all that going on because they're uncertain about their future. So if they could come into the office and sit down and say, okay, you take the house, I take the business, and we share the kids 50-50, we can do the divorce for an economical price because we just sit down and write up an agreement, everybody signs it, and the court processes it. What feeds a divorce and what costs so much money is the anger between people, because that's what drives up the cost. Now, if you have a complex divorce and people have a lot of assets and it's complicated, for instance, the wife owned the house before marriage, then they got married, and then they improved the house with the husband's separate property, and now it's community property, and you got to analyze all that. It costs money to do that. You have to appraise it. There's all kinds of case law that governs the formulas on it. So divorce can be an inexpensive process if you do it in a conscious way, but it could also be a very expensive process. It really depends upon the two individuals and the attorney who is guiding them, because the attorney can guide them in a way to save money.
Got it. If you're listening right now, we're talking about mediation and estate planning for a happier divorce. Now, we all know how expensive divorces can get and how messy they can get. So truly dealing with the right people, having the right people in your corner and guiding you the right way is what's important here. And we have two very successful people in this industry talking to you for free today. Don't wait. Pick up a pen and write this number down, because this is the kind of information you need to get. Our phone number is 949-720-1616. That's 949-720-1616. Or check us out online at moneymatterswithdino.com. This segment is brought to you by Reverse Mortgage Educators. We'll be right back after the commercial breaks.
Finally, a reputable legal firm. CDA Law Center, a nationally recognized nonprofit homeowner advocate, one of the most trusted firms in the country for helping consumers with their loan modification process. CDA's attorneys have decades of combined experience guiding their clients through the very complex and choppy waters of loan modification. Call 877-499-4435, 877-499-4435. Finally, honest and ethical advice to gain real results. Call CDA Law Center at 877-499-4435. That's 877-499-4435. Or check them out online at cdalawcenter.com.
50 years ago, you didn't have any worries. You danced the night away. But the music slowed down. And now you have financial worries and woes you never thought you would be faced with in retirement.
I'm so afraid that my husband and I aren't going to be able to afford to live in our home.
Thousands of people have chosen to put a spring in their financial step by taking advantage of a government-insured reverse mortgage loan that turns the equity in your home into tax-free cash. You can use the cash for whatever you want. Pay off medical bills, credit cards, travel, and start to enjoy your retirement. Best of all, you still own your own home. Call now. Find out how you can qualify for a life without monthly mortgage payments. Call now, and we will send you a free DVD that will explain if a reverse mortgage is right for you. Call the number on your screen right now. No obligation, just education.
Mortgage professionals, are you looking for a company that values you as a loan officer? One that can provide you with the tools you need to grow your business at your pace? Then look no further than CHL Mortgage. CHL Mortgage provides you with a full range of residential loan products and services. You'll be backed by an exceptionally trained team of professionals that can take your clients as seriously as you do. Your clients will be treated with dedicated service, personal integrity, and exceptional professionalism. You'll be able to guide them in the right loan with competitive rates and keep them on the road to achieving life's goals. To get started on advancing your career, call Dino with CHL Mortgage at 949-720-1616. That's CHL Mortgage, 949-720-1616.
Welcome back to Money Matters with Dino. If you have any questions for me or my guests, or you need help with your financial matters, give us a call. We're at 949-720-1616. That's 949-720-1616. Or check us out online at moneymatterswithdino.com. From your estate to real estate, we're here to help. This segment is brought to you by Citywide Home Loans. I'm just going to go ahead and say it this way: is we have the best rates, we have the best service, we have the best. No. Listen, everybody says that on the radio or TV or whatever. But at the end of the day, what makes us different from everybody else is we have the best customer service. Our rates and everything else in our programs are just like everybody else's. But you deal with a professional when you deal with somebody from Citywide Home Loans. So give me a call at 949-720-1616. All right, we're in the middle of our panel discussion with the experts. We have Ellie Ortiz and Barry Fischer, and we have this great conversation going about mediation and estate planning for a happier divorce. We didn't get through a bunch of the questions, so guys, let's just rip through a bunch of these so we can get through them, because this topic is obviously, with 50% in our country here, something that a lot of people are interested in. So, Barry, let's start with you here. What about estate planning? Is a prenup really a part of estate planning, or is that just a good excuse?
Well, it could be a part of estate planning, but really, I guess it could be considered that. But, it's kind of like two different things. You plan your estate not at the same time that you're planning to get married.
Yeah, like you said earlier, right? You're saying I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you.
Well, usually estate planning kind of comes after you're married and you're building. You're trying to preserve something. So, but it's an estate planning tool in trying to keep your separate property family wealth away from the spouse. So in that way, it's an effective estate planning tool. For instance, if you were from a very wealthy family and you were getting a lot of inheritance, and whether you had it now or were going to get it in the future, and the family wanted to make sure that the new spouse didn't end up with that property, then the prenup would be a very effective tool to make sure that that happens. So in that way, it's an estate planning tool.
Got it. Is this legal, and has it ever been done? In the prenup, if you are caught cheating, you get absolutely nothing.
California's a no-fault state, so you can't use the blame of someone cheating as a reason to get divorced.
Even if you agree to it, though, ahead of time?
If you agree to that in the contract and both people consent to it, it's kind of like a condition precedent. If that occurs, then the rest happens. But I think it may be subject to being void against public policy.
Got it. Okay.
Because, the law encourages marriage and encourages marriages to stay together. So we don't want to give people an easy way to get out of it.
Sure. Okay. Can you explain what community property law in California is?
Absolutely. Community property law was created in Mexico. The Mexicans believed that the husband running the ranch and doing the horses and the cattle or whatever else business he was doing, and the mom staying home with the children and being the housewife was of equal importance. And so they created the community property law. And community property means that everything that's earned during the marriage, everything that's purchased during the marriage is community property. That means you own it 50-50. And the southwestern states in the United States have community property. That would be New Mexico, Arizona, Las Vegas, California. And interesting enough, Utah. Utah has community property. The rest of the country does not have community property.
Interesting. Ellie, what about declaration of disclosure? What is that?
Well, basically, every party has to disclose and do a full and honest disclosure of all of their assets, debts, income, expenses prior to entering into a agreement, in my case, or entering into a court judgment in Barry's case.
Okay. What about when kids are involved? Does that change the outcome of mediation? Do you handle it differently?
Well, it's a lot more challenging when kids are involved, especially if there's one parent that is very reluctant to let go of the children. That always makes it a little bit more difficult. I've had a mediation where, I was told that the father is just an accessory and he doesn't really need to be there, and they're the family. And so things like that, of course, make things more difficult. But we work through that. Do
you get involved in that, or are you just dollars? This is how much you have to pay every month. This is who gets the property. Or do you say this is how much time you have with the kids as well?
Well, I make suggestions. I can't, I don't give legal advice, but I do make suggestions as a mediator, and I do get involved in that. I get very heavily involved in it. I work with a lot of family therapists that I recommend for them to go and talk to after we reach our agreement to try to work on building the family. Everything that I do is for the family and keeping the family unit together, because I know that after the divorce is final, the kids grow up, they have birthday parties, they have weddings, they have, you have to be in the room with the same people over and over again throughout the course of your life when you have children together. Right. So that's really where I come from when I do the mediation, and I think that's part of the reason why I'm so successful, is because people see that, that's the intention.
Right. So do you find yourself being as much of a counselor as a mediator?
Yeah.
Can you prescribe any medication as well?
No, I wish I could for myself sometimes.
I would have to imagine for both of you guys dealing with such emotional people, it's just got to be tough for you personally.
Yeah, absolutely. It is very challenging. And when I'm going through, however long the period is that we're going through the mediation, I go to sleep thinking about the clients. I wake up thinking about them. It's really hard to think about anything else because they're my number one priority in trying to help them figure out a way to settle their situation.
What the challenge is with an emotional person is how do you guide them to see what is good for them and their family when they're in this highly activated emotional state. Yeah. And most of the time, it's the clients that harm their own positions and harm their own cases and cause all their problems, and they can't see their behavior because they're so activated emotionally, they can't hear the voice of reason.
Barry, we talked about the divorce rate being about 50%. Do you know what it is for divorce attorneys?
No, I have no idea.
I wonder what that statistic is. Barry, tell me about, if it's okay, I know you have certain obligation and not tell stories, but maybe if you can leave some names out. One of your more interesting stories.
Well, an interesting story. A man and a woman had a child in France, and they were living together, and the husband said, it's okay, you could go to Los Angeles. And she left with the child, came to Los Angeles, and then she was kind of afraid of him. So for a period of a couple of weeks, she didn't give him her address or contact information, and he got upset and angry, and he filed a petition under the Hague Convention, and through the central authority in the United States down to the district attorney's office in Los Angeles, he made a complaint, a petition to get the child back, and we had a trial about it. And it was interesting because the Hague Convention is a whole other set of laws that the family law attorney has to deal with, and the Hague Convention laws are different than California law. And my client won on not illegally removing the child from France because we had an email that said that he consented, but she lost on keeping the child unavailable from the father in France by not allowing him to know where the child was for that 2-week period. And they were ordered back. The child was ordered back, returned to France. She went back to the French court. She won the full legal custody there, which she had before she left. And they ordered that she's allowed to live in California, came back to California, and is once again litigating custody and visitation in California.
No kidding.
So it's the case that will never end.
Wow. Who pays for that? I mean, what if she doesn't have enough money?
Well, the parties pay for it. They have to come up with money.
My goodness. Just seems like a big waste of money. Might as well just stay married, right? Married and happy.
Or how about just share your child in a loving way?
Yep. So we've been talking a lot about divorce, but a lot of what I wanted to cover as well is also estate planning. And Ellie, the services you provide, aside from the mediation for divorce, you also help incorporate people, create wills and trusts and all that. Do you believe everybody should have a will and a trust, or is that the type of thing like you need to wait until you have some assets?
Well, I think that everybody should have a living trust because it avoids probate. I mean, there are laws that certain estates under certain value don't have to go through probate, but it's a lot less expensive to prepare a living trust. It's $750 for a complete estate plan for a single person.
And how much would an attorney charge for that?
For what?
For an estate plan?
It depends. Probably anywhere from $5,000 to $50,000, depending the size of the estate, the complexities. There's so many variables. I don't know if you could really quote a price because, if you're dealing with someone like that owns the Los Angeles Dodgers, how much would you charge them to do an estate where their assets are over $1 billion?
Sure.
And then if you're dealing with someone who just wants to protect their family residence, maybe you could do it for $2,500.
So, but in your case, Ellie, you do it just kind of a basic package, right? Is what, $750?
Well, I do a package, and I also do packages for attorneys as well. So for an attorney that doesn't do estate planning, then I'll prepare the paperwork for them, and then they present it to their clients, give the legal advice, direct me on how they'd like it prepared. And so I assist in that capacity as well.
Now, you mentioned probate a minute ago. What is probate, and why don't enough people know about it? What's the process? Let's say, I tell my clients all the time, they think, when they hold title to their house as joint tenants, well, they do it because if anything happens, the other person just gets it. And I always tell them, but what if something happens to the both of you at one time? What's going to happen with your child? What happens in that situation if they don't have a trust? They have a will, and the will says it goes to the kid, but what happens?
May I answer that question?
Yes, absolutely. Please do. Please do.
Okay. So if you don't have a will and you don't have a trust, then you go by California law. It's called intestate when you don't have a will or a trust. And there is a set list of who inherits. So if both parents die and they have children, it goes to the children. If both parents die and the children die, it goes to the parents of the people that died. And if they're all removed, then it goes to the next person that's in the chain that's on the list. And if you don't have a will and a trust, you have to open up a probate case because you have to notice all the people that might have been owed money from the person the two people that passed away. And they have to get notice of it, and you have to do an accounting. And there has to be an executor set up, and if there's no one in the family to do that, that'll be appointed as a professional executor by the court.
Who pays for all that?
The estate. So let's say the estate is worth $2 million. They take, I think, 3% of the gross estate plus filing fees plus executor fees from the estate.
Let's say the estate was $30,000, $40,000. Is there ever a point where it's better to just walk away from it versus go through probate and deal with everything?
If you walk away from an estate, then the state of California gets the estate. And then they liquidate it or do whatever they want with it. But if there are any relatives involved, I think there's a value to the relatives receiving it.
Okay. You're listening to Money Matters with Dino on K-Talk AM1150. If you have any questions at all about what you've heard here today, give us a call at 949-720-1616. That's 949-720-1616. Or check us out online at moneymatterswithdino.com. This segment was brought to you by Citywide Home Loans. We'll be right back after these commercials.